what's checking, everybody? Welcome to another Friday edition of Buy or Sell right here on the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. We're both wearing T-shirts today, him of the MTV variety, and I've got my 85% off. It's Austin. I've got that. I think I wore that last week. I'm wearing the same T-shirt again. Fellas, as you come into the chat room, like this video, smash that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. And you know what? We would appreciate it. You might actually appreciate it. Doing an act of appreciation for yourself. Hit the notifications button so that every time we do a video here on orangebloods.com, and there have been so many breaking commitments in the last couple of weeks that you never know when those videos are going to come. Those notifications will give you those alerts that you're looking for. This video brought to you by MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're looking to find freedom in your next venture, start living that dream, being your own boss, contact Andy. The information right there on the screen, Andy at MyPerfectFranchise.net. And of course, bring him up on the phone, 404-973-9901. Mr. Richardson, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, man. What do you got planned for the weekend?
At some point tomorrow night, we're going to go see the new Indiana Jones movie. That will probably be the thing. But I was able to score Alicia Keys tickets for later in the month at movie centers. So while that may sound like something that we could do any weekend of the year, we're going to go see our first concert in a while, in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So, back in business, baby. How about you?
Who's opening for her?
I don't know. I wondered that, but I haven't yet seen who it is.
I saw Alicia Keys in concert years ago. She was phenomenal. I think like Jennifer Hudson may have been open for her or something like that. But she's fantastic as far as an artist and being able to play the piano and everything like that. Tremendously talented. Tonight, my boy.
Is it a date night?
Well, it's date night for you. No. This is the last of kiddom. So I'm going out with one of my boys tonight to some social club. Never really, when these clubs, I guess you got to pay a membership to be a part of and just to go drink. So doing that tonight. I got Max for the rest of the weekend. And then him and his mom are taking off for like weeks. I'll see that dude probably like August the 10th or something like that. So
wow.
You're gonna see me coming on some of these shows. Like, hey man, trying to compose myself.
Yes,
it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
All right. Well, look. Without further ado, let's jump into buy or sell. It's interesting. I used to do a segment of this on the radio, so I'm used to the music kicking in, but we don't do that. So let me remind everybody: if you've got a buy or sell question, put it in the chat. We may come to it. If you use the super chat option, we will come to it. It's kind of interesting the way that works. If you give us money, you jump to the straight of the line. If you don't, you never know. We may pay attention to you. We may not. Anwar actually has a buy or sell question for me to open up the show. And I'm kind of interested to see where this goes because I wonder if my answer is going to be the thing that everybody wants to hear.
By the way, the genesis of that was based off of the conversations that you were having on Orangebloods last night and this morning as relates to something that you reported about Xavier Worthy and pushback that you were receiving from folks, which I thought would be an interesting topic today.
So let's hear it.
Right, with buy or sell, Xavier Worthy has a new attitude and will thrive this season.
See, I'm going to sell that. I think he's going to absolutely thrive. Xavier Worthy for me is a special football player. When you look at the history of the University of Texas, no wide receiver in school history has caught more touchdown passes through the first 2 years of his career. He's, in fact, you can almost add second place and third place together, and they they only barely equal what Xavier Worthy has done in catching 21 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. as it relates to new attitude, like I can't speak to that. And if you ask me, will Xavier Worthy's body language and attitude look great if he's consistently missed while running free down the field again this year? Like, I don't know that. And I don't know that I blame Xavier Worthy for the things that – so if we go back to what happened a year ago, about midway through the season was the very first time we saw him kind of body language-wise show some frustration at not being hit in stride, not being connected with, not having balls remotely close to him that were catchable. I told you on a Monday Overreaction show when it first happened, I was like, man, Xavier better watch that. Like, fans, that's the one thing fans don't want to see is bad body language. Because deep down, they all wish they were playing Texas football, and they convinced themselves that if they only had a chance to be a Texas Longhorn football player, oh my God, how grateful would they be? And if they couldn't be good, at least they would be a good teammate. They don't know what it's like to be special on a football field. And I'm reminded of a story. I've told this story before when Chris Sims was at Texas, way back in the day, 20 years ago. Early in his career, there was a sense that he's just throwing the ball too hard. His receivers can't catch it. And the way the story goes, Chris goes to his old man Phil Sims and says, Dad, my receivers can't catch the ball. Should I take something off of it? Like, is it my responsibility to change my playing style because my teammates aren't up to the level? And Phil Sims told Chris Sims, you don't change a thing. Your job is to get the ball to the receivers. It's the receiver's job to catch the ball, and it's the coach's job to teach the receiver to catch the ball if he can't catch the ball. And ultimately, the players around you need to raise their level of play. You don't need to lessen what you're doing. Somehow along the way, we've changed the conversation with Xavier Worthy to, oh, man, he needs to make better adjustments. He needs to come back to the ball. He needs to fight for the ball. Instead of acknowledging he's running wide ass open down the field all the time. All the time. He's wide open. And can you imagine someone in the NFL telling Tyreek Hill, slow down. Running too fast. Can you imagine any of the elite receivers in the NFL being told, you're too good? Be worse because your quarterback can't do it. In the NFL, they'll find another quarterback. In the NFL, they want you to get open. And Xavier Worthy does that on the regular. I found the video on War from a year ago. It was actually Kieran that posted 90 seconds of Xavier Worthy running open and Texas receivers not being able to hit him.
That's when Casey was the quarterback, correct? Was that mixed? It was
Casey and Hudson from 2022, 2021. Quinn Ewers has to get better. And all I'm saying is, if we get to the midway point of the season and Xavier Worthy is running wide open and the ball's not hitting him, connecting with him. Now, we know he dropped some balls at the end of the year, so he's got to do his part. The ball, when it arrives and it hits you, you have to catch it. But I don't really worry about that too much with Xavier. I think he will be fine. I think his attitude will be fine. I expect Quinn Ewers to be better. But if we're constantly seeing Xavier run open and the ball's not getting to him, I can't say that I know for certain that he's not going to show frustration. I don't look at what happened last season with Xavier Worthy and say the big problem was his attitude. I look back at last season and say, for the second year in a row, Xavier Worthy was too good for his quarterbacks, and that his quarterbacks struggle to hit him in stride, to hit him in areas. I'm looking at videos from last year where he's open and the ball's sailing out of bounds, or it's 5 or 10 yards too short, or 5 or 10 yards the other way. Like, the quarterback play has to lift itself up to Xavier Worthy, and he will have the greatest season any Texas wide receiver has ever had at Texas. But if that doesn't happen, I don't know. Like, you could have told him at midseason, Xavier, stop looking frustrated on the field. It never happened. I can't assume that a year later the attitude and the frustrations on the field will improve if the quarterback play doesn't. Simple as that.
Yeah, I see. You know what? Where you start, where you were going, I didn't know where it was until you landed there. And then I said, I get it. It's about the QB. And it wasn't about Xavier. And I get what you're saying, Catch. You can't disagree on that, because the narrative associated with Xavier has been a lot of finger pointing towards his way, without the acknowledgement of the things and challenges that he's had to deal with. To your point, won 3 quarterbacks in the past 2 seasons. A hand that nobody acknowledged, that, to whatever degree, it finally came out, but no one acknowledged that the hand, and no one acknowledged that or gives him credit for trying to play through an injury, and typically that's kind of the warrior thing, right? You want your guys who are, they're hurt, they're banged up, and they still trying to go out there and fight. Typically, you get credit for that. He hasn't received any credit for that. I've even seen that in the chat when someone says, Christian says about, we win the Alamo Bowl if X can catch. Well, maybe you win it if he doesn't have a broken hand, or some part of his hand that is broken, to the point where I feel like Sarkisian, in the spring finally felt like, you know what, this guy's kind of taking a lot of bullets for everybody. It's probably about the time to let everybody know. And of course, him and Jim Vituro kind of get into their back and forth and stuff. And honestly, the best time Sark could have probably told everybody about the hand injury for Xavier probably would have been after the Alamo Bowl. To be quite honest with you, like right after the Alamo Bowl, when people are asking about, what happened. Hey, by the way, just so you know, he's been playing with a broken hand, because now you don't have to worry about protecting him from somebody else. At that point, it's in the clear. Season's over. Let everybody know. But yeah, his connection with Quinn, it needs to be there. 100% Catch. Because you're right. If it's there, then we're talking about something. We're probably talking 1,500 yards easily, right? 1,600, something crazy. Because the thing that you said about Xavier, I think has been the best. Whatever the word in comparison, the best label that I've said, whatever the hell I'm looking for. But you always said he does the hard thing, which is getting open. Like the hardest thing for a receiver to do is to get open. And to your point, he's always open. There's never a question of that. It's a question of, okay, so on and so forth. So you're right. That connection between him and Quinn has to be there. If that happens, one, like starting backwards forward, yes, he will thrive. And of course, he'll be a happy camper. Now, I have heard this. I'll shut up on the last one. I have heard that him and Chris Jackson have a really good relationship, a really strong relationship. I hear that's really, I feel like to a certain degree, Xavier kind of finally has like a receivers coach that is bringing out the best in him. So I'm hearing a lot of good things about their relationship. But to your point, if we see last season, you can't fault the guy if the connection isn't there.
And to be fair on a couple of fronts, Brennan Marion was actually Brennan Marion reached out to me last year to say the drop thing is way overplayed. Xavier Worthy's not – he conveyed to me that Xavier Worthy has dropped fewer passes a year ago than Jordan Addison dropped the year before, when Addison was the Biletnikoff Award winner. Now, Brennan Marion doesn't get to speak to the media. Sark doesn't allow his assistants to talk to the media. But Brennan Marion, as far as I could tell, was a strong advocate for Xavier Worthy. And can you imagine Chris Jackson showing up And he's like, okay, let me see what I got to work with. First day of practice, second day of practice. And then he's like, holy hell.
Yeah.
You guys didn't tell me that this dude was a super route runner. You didn't tell me he was always open. I'm guessing Chris Jackson likes Xavier Worthy because Xavier Worthy does the stuff that's really, really hard, really, really easy. And I think, so look, here's what Xavier has to do, though. Xavier has to continue to get open. Xavier does have to catch the ball, broken hand or not. And look, if the hand, it's such a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation a year ago. They were out of wide receivers, right? I mean, even Xavier with a broken hand was a guy that Sarkisian was funneling the football to 15 targets a game. And you and I had this conversation back in the spring when he finally came out and said, Xavier is playing with a broken hand and, had to have a cast on it afterwards and blah, 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 blah. If he's hurt enough that he can't function, maybe don't play him. But if you don't play him, who the hell else are you going to throw the football to? Mm-hmm. Let's see. Nate's take real quick. We'll get to the super chat question in a second. What's frustrating is everything Ketch said ignores that the last image fans have are his drops against Washington. Folks treat Quinn differently because he's always owns up to that while X won't. I mean, I don't know that Xavier won't own up to the fact that he should have played better in the Alamo Bowl. I think Xavier Worthy will tell you go back and look at the film of the game of the balls that he dropped. Xavier Worthy's expectations for himself are to be great. Keep in mind that kid had never played a down of football when we interviewed him as a freshman when we had the Xavier Worthy show back in the day, Anwar. And he was like, I want to catch 15 passes, have over 1,000 yards receiving as a true freshman. And we were like, whoa, young buck.
Yeah.
Those types of seasons don't grow on trees. And he was like, that's what I expect of myself. So I don't know. Like, look, the issue is if you want to boil it down to a game against Washington, then Xavier Worthy's overrated. If you want to boil it down to 25 games over 2 seasons, that guy's probably got over 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns that have been left on the field easily. It's scary to think how good his numbers would be had he been playing with not even elite quarterback play, Anwar, but every game consistently above average quarterback play. Because I can throw that link back at you from just a year ago, and it was like, oh my God. Like you almost cringe. You do cringe. I dare someone to watch that 90-second video that Kieran, formerly of Orangebloods, posted a year ago. It's 90 seconds of quarterbacks missing Xavier Worthy wide open. You're like, oh my God, well, the guy had 12 touchdowns and nearly 1,000 yards. If they could have just thrown it near him, we're talking probably 20 touchdowns as a true freshman. I don't even know how many yards. And the same thing happened a year ago. I'm not saying that Xavier doesn't need to be better. He does. He has to catch the football, and he has dropped it too many times. Now, I would point towards his usage rate as a big point of contention because I saw the stat last year towards the end of the year, drops by percentage of balls thrown to them. He was barely top 10 in the Big 12. Xavier Hutchinson was actually the worst in the Big 12 last year at dropping balls. We saw that a couple of times in big games that might have cost Iowa State football games. And yet, generally speaking, Xavier Hutchinson was looked at as one of the best receivers in the Big 12, a future NFL player. That stuff wasn't held against him. I do think his attitude needs to be better. The question you asked me was, will his attitude be better? I think Xavier Worthy is Xavier Worthy. I don't think that kid, for a second that he's been on campus, has ever faked anything. He is who he is. And you know what that means? He's arguably the hardest worker in the entire locker room, right? So be clear when we talk about the good and the bad, his body language at times can be terrible. I was the first person to point that out amongst Texas media and amongst really Texas fans. It hadn't become a thing. I'll never forget the look on your face, Anwar, when I called him out last year, because you looked like a deer in headlights, because it was like, whoa, you're calling out Xavier a little bit. Xavier's your guy. That can be better, but I don't know for a fact that it will. What I do know for a fact, Xavier Worthy will get open a shit ton this season. And if his quarterback play is better, his numbers will go through the roof. Simple as that.
I mean, I think, first and foremost, first of all, if Xavier Worthy was trash, he wouldn't be a part of this program, and Steve Sarkisian would have shown him the door, right? It's just that simple. And at any point when Xavier has thought about maybe like life might be better somewhere else, there's a reason why they've said, hey, let's have a conversation. And there's a reason why they haven't had those same conversations with other people who've thought about leaving, right? And so, first of all, there's a couple of things that I think people have to do as relates to it, right? Okay, so getting caught up into what Xavier has on social media, then what he takes down at whatever point. First of all, you should be too old as a grown-ass man to be worried about.
Rodolfo's the only one that should be following him on social media.
Rodolfo's in his 20s, right? So that's fine. But you as a grown-ass adult are like, I can't believe he took the stuff off his Instagram. Like, dude, why are you on Xavier Worthy's Instagram anyway? Like, I follow some of these guys on Twitter. I'm not on their Instagram. I don't give a damn what they do on a Saturday night. They don't give a damn about what I do. So don't get caught up in the like what young people are doing. I don't know what young people are doing on social media. I don't get it. So stay out their lane. So you gotta stay out their lane as far as that is concerned. The other stuff too, Catch, when it comes to like the criticism stamp, like, okay, body language. The one thing I will say, and you will agree, the one thing about Xavier Worthy and his family, if you want to know a group of people that keep it a buck and keep it 100, a group of people that mean what they say and say what they mean and don't know what a lie is because they couldn't lie to you if they tried, because that's just not who they are. They are those people.
For real.
I mean, they are not about that BS on any particular level. And so if you're looking for a poker face, or you're looking for someone to smile in your face and make you feel good just because on GP, you ain't gonna get it. That's not how they built. That's not how they are. They say what they mean and mean what they say. And you got to respect it, because you'll know that you're always getting the raw truth, the raw, the 100 from them. Now, sometimes you may not like the reaction, but it's honest. And I mean, his reactions were genuine, but his frustrations were understandable, especially when you add in the injury. But Catch, I mean, you point out at the end of the day, if he was not all this, nobody would be talking about who had him as a potential first round pick. Who was it that you looked at?
ESPN just this week had him listed as a first round pick.
That's based off of tape. Okay, like that's what that thing is based off of. Like, and again, what happens between now and the draft, those are two totally different things, but that's based off of some people looking at the tape, no commentary, no Orangebloods, and them just looking at this guy gets open. This guy gets open.
And that's him. The NFL scouts think, I don't know how much Xavier weighs right now, but they're under the impression that he's like Devontae Smith and weighs like $160, $165. They're looking at him and saying, that dude is so freaky, we're going to ignore the fact that usually $165 in the NFL doesn't get you drafted. Like that's small.
Yeah.
And he's a guy where, I mean, you better be really fast, really quick, and get open a lot for them to ignore the fact, and he does. Look, I just think one of these days when Xavier Worthy's not here, there are going to be a lot of people who, when he gets to the NFL, that's the thing. It's the thing that drives. I'm just trying to imagine this conversation onward. I'm trying to imagine in an NFL market where, let's say you've drafted a receiver in the first round.
Okay.
And every week in the NFL, that guy gets open, like so wide open that you're like, well, that should have been a 70-yard touchdown. I'm trying to imagine in the NFL where a guy is so consistently wide open and the ball doesn't get to him, and the reaction from everybody is blame the receiver.
I can't.
It doesn't work that way at the highest level.
It doesn't work that way. And by the way, no one bats an eye when if that receiver after the game says, "I was open. Go ask that guy."
Yes.
That would happen in the locker room. Like, and everybody like, oh, well, that's just, we just call that Sunday afternoons in the NFL. That's just
they
how
call
it
that
is.
Sunday in the NFL when a receiver says, I don't know, you're going to go ask the guy who couldn't get me the ball why I couldn't get the ball. And I'm not trying to throw Quinn under the bus. There aren't 3 players in college football that do what Xavier Worthy does. I mean, what he does in his quickness, his acceleration, his ability to get open. I mean, there just aren't. I've never seen it at Texas before in 30 plus years. And I've seen NFL receivers. I've seen first-round picks. I've seen All-Americans. You've seen Devin Duvernay have an amazing season. Devin Duvernay doesn't get open like Xavier Worthy gets open. It's just different and unique. And I don't mean for the buy or sell show today to completely turn into an Xavier Worthy fest, but it's amazing how we're 7 months later. And that thing, there was only one unanimous first team all Big 12 player this week when the preseason all Big 12 team came out. It wasn't Kelvin Banks. It wasn't Jalen Ford, who should have been. Quite frankly, Kelvin Banks should have been. It wasn't anybody you can think of. It was Xavier Worthy. So everybody else around the Big 12 seems to get it. They're like, hey, I don't know who's badass this year in the Big 12, but every single voter said Xavier Worthy is that guy. We've seen it. You know why? Because those guys remember the games that they played against Texas, and they remember like, crap, that guy could have had 3 more touchdowns. You think Oklahoma media and Oklahoma supporters, you think they've got a fix for how good they think Xavier Worthy is?
Yeah.
So,
yes.
So let's move on. But
okay.
that's where I stand on Xavier. And the thing is, I expect this next question ties into exactly what we've been talking about. It comes from Jay Lee in the super chat. Buy or sell, Quinn gets drafted by the 3rd round, regardless of the season he has, or even if he misses time due to injury.
I'll sell on that, regardless of the season. Like, I mean, I don't know if you can go regardless of the season. Like, I would say that's what it is. That's my only catch word phrase right there is regardless, because if it's a bad season or injury season, like I'm not quite sure on that one. It's by 3rd round, like third round, you're talking, at that point maybe 5 quarterbacks may have been taken by that time. You probably get at least 3 in the 1st round, maybe a couple in the 2nd, but then they usually start stacking on linemen and some other things, and then kind of go back to your quarterback in the 3rd. Regardless, I won't go regardless. Now, I don't expect them to regress, so so if you just take out the regardless portion of it, then I would say, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, regardless, like, yeah, I mean, anything can happen. The draft is the things that and I've done this long enough, and you have too. The draft talk in June and July and stuff. I've been here when people have been projected to be early round picks, like who was it? Was it Colin Johnson? I remember one year where people were talking about that potential. I've seen it, and then we see
even
what
Brendan
happens.
Eagles had some of that, like
Yes,
after his sophomore season.
Best example, Spencer Rattler. Going into that year before he loses his job, first round pick. Everyone says he's first overall. That guy's still in college. You know what I'm saying, Kat? So I'm not going to go over regardless.
I think you're exactly right. I think, Jay, the piece of this question is your regardless is it leaves open the possibility of worst case scenario. So when you say regardless of the season, or even if he misses time due to injury, well, what if he missed the entire season? What if he played 2 quarters, tore his ACL? And I'm not putting that into the universe. I'm using it as an example of, like, when you say regardless, there's some worst case scenarios where it's like, well, no, he'd have to come back to college. However, I would say in the spirit of Jay's question is the reason why I expect Xavier Worthy to have a big season. Quinn Ewers is incredibly talented. With another 12 months to work on timing, meshing with receivers, all of these things, like, my sense is he's just too talented to not make adjustments and not make improvements. And it's one of the reasons why my expectations for Quinn are higher. And that's the tide that lifts all boats. A better Quinn Ewers this year means that all of the receivers are better this year. You know what? If Quinn Ewers is better this year, Jordan Whittington will accidentally fall into the end zone a handful of times more than he did a year ago, when we were like, God, man, didn't get a whole lot out of the slot this year in terms of production. Better quarterback play, and suddenly Jordan Whittington looks better, and Xavier Worthy looks better, and every guy on that campus that was there a year ago that at times looked like they weren't capable, they'll just look more capable. Quinn Ewers is ultimately the answer to everything this season. Quinn Ewers is better. He plays at a high level. Everything about this football team is better in 2023, and that's the most exciting and optimistic thing that you can possibly say, because it's hard not to think he won't be better. Anwar, that he has to be better.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the skill set's there, right? So there's nothing that I'm seeing that you say to yourself like, well, he ain't got the skill set to get it done, so therefore I can't imagine that it's going to happen. I mean, I think there has to be, the hard part, and I think the hard part, Catch, of the 5-star prospect and the 5-star label is the expectations that come along. Like, I think people expect the finished product on day one, and they expect the finished product in year one. And because they don't get that right away, it just becomes like all these questions on stuff. And I think Quinn was, probably a victim of his own hype, because of, because he's from Texas, and, everyone had these high expectations, and everyone's talking about the mullet and, t-shirts and wearing wigs. Like, it put a lot on him, to where you saw fans like walking out, like after a loss, like throwing their mullets down on the ground. They're like, okay, that's an overreaction. Like, you guys are taking this thing too far, because you're not factoring in that, by the way, this is his first year as a starter in college. As talented as he is, as talented as Arch Manning is, he's probably not going to play much this season, Catch. I mean, as talented as Jatavian Sanders is, we're talking about a guy that's number 2 tight end that's going to be drafted, Catch. He barely played. Like, in year one, we were talking about, man, should he switch back to defense? Like, did he make a mistake? Like, what's going on with Jatavian? That's all people would ask us about is Jatavian. Now they're like, oh yeah, well, he's the number 1, number 2 guy off the board. And it's like, yeah, of course that makes sense. But no one gives him that grace. I believe now, year 2 with Sark, got a lot of weapons. Like I expect him to play a lot better, but unfortunately, in year one, maybe in hindsight, the expectations were a little bit too unrealistic.
How about this for a buy or sell question? I like this one from Nick. Texas can win the Big 12 championship if Jordan Whittington is the second leading receiver this year.
Ooh, that means over 80 Mitchell. That means over Isaiah Nayor.
Now, can I ask you a quick question before you give your answer?
Okay.
When he says second leading receiver, we're talking receptions, or are we talking yards, or are we talking both?
I'll lump it together.
I was thinking receptions more than yards.
Receptions. That's okay. With receptions, I mean, you can be a good possession receiver, right? So, I mean, if that's the case, like if he's a good possession receiver, then I'm not expecting you to quote unquote stretch the field and take it to the house. But so receptions is you can win it. I won't say that's the formula, but if he's a second leading receiver, and Jordan Whittington's is very solid. But it's a good question though. Well, what do you got? It's a very good question.
I'm going to say buy in that I can see Jordan Whittington catching 65 passes this year for like 720 yards. Let's say 4 touchdowns. That'd be a better year than a year ago. And then I could see A.D. Mitchell having more yards I can see A.D. Mitchell averaging 20 yards a reception. And suddenly he catches 40 passes and he's got more yards than Jordan Whittington. So, yeah, especially if I tell you Xavier Worthy what if I said Xavier Worthy had 1,500 yards receiving and 14 touchdowns? Well, at that point, you're like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you got a guy that does that. So yes, I buy that Texas can. I don't know that it's optimal, right? And I think that's your hesitation. But yes. Can, yes.
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you this. I know we got some super chats in there. What if Jatavian Sanders was the second leading receiver? What would you say?
I'd have no problem with that.
Yeah.
That would mean you're getting an NFL guy. Here's the thing. I don't know that Jordan Whittington is my favorite player on this team. There's no player I want to have more success, to have a longer NFL career, to make more NFL money. Like, I want that guy to have a lot of success. But I don't know yet that he's an NFL player. I do know that Jatavion Sanders is. So if you told me that Jatavion was second, I'd be like, heck yeah, you're getting the ball to the second biggest mismatch your offense might have. I like that. Boy, our super chatters are loving the receiving game questions. Super chat, buy or sell a 1,000-yard receiver, an 800-yard receiver, 2 500-yard receivers, a 1,000-yard rusher, a 300-yard rusher, and 2 100. And I was told there would be no math.
I got to write this down. I'm like, wait a second.
Because I have it on the screen. So it's there for you.
It's easy. I need to write this down so I can see it. I went to public school. This is too much.
I'll go first. I'm going to sell. I don't think Texas is going to have 4 receivers with more than 500 yards. And I'm not completely convinced, even though Steve Sarkisian's stats say that he will have a 1,000-yard rusher. I think there's maybe as good or equal of a chance that he'll have 2 700-yard rushers, but maybe not a 1,000-yard rusher. But ultimately, I'm selling on 4 receivers with more than 500 yards.
So where I get kind of caught up in it a little bit is that I think for you and I think I expect Xavier to get the bulk of receiving yards this season. So, I would probably think he should be somewhere around like that 1,400 like range for Xavier. I think safely in there for me. Number 2, maybe, but then I don't know if the 2 500-yard guys. Like, I'm not quite sure.
Does Sanders count as a receiver? Because I wasn't including him.
Yeah, but look, now let's go pass catchers, right? So
Okay.
let's go pass catchers. I mean, Sanders had what about 6 something last season?
Yeah,
somewhere in that range. So
616 maybe.
Okay, so then you're talking about 2 500-yard guys.
I'll say bye. Well, I'm closer now.
Okay.
The thing is, I'm still not sold on all of those things happening, and they have a 1,000-yard rusher. But I'm close. I'm close.
It's close. My only thing with Robert's thing is that I don't know about the second one as far as the 800 is concerned, only because I think Xavier's going to have more yards. So
you could have you got a 1,000-yard receiver. You could have 3 guys that have between 600 and less than 800, and I would almost buy that, right? So it's 1,000, and then you got a guy with 750, another guy with 720, and then another guy with like 600. I actually would buy that if we're including Sanders. I don't know that
it's a hell of a question.
It
I'm very close to saying yes. I'm trying to talk myself out of it, but I'm very close to saying yes based off of what we expect from Quinn this season. I think I'll go. You know what? I think I'll buy that one, Robert. I'll buy it. I've talked myself into it. You saw how my process had to work.
I'm gonna say sell mainly because I'm taking the field, but it's a good question. Yeah. Robert, pat yourself on the back. I don't understand.
If there was a stump the chump question, that would be the question that stumped the chumps.
Jay Lee, regardless, was he's okay. So we're going back. So I meant even if it was similar to last season, and maybe even he misses a game. So he's re-asking the Quinn question, and he's saying Quinn has a similar year to a year ago. So let's say stats are roughly the same, plays 9 games instead of 12.
Then I would buy. I would buy that because he's already projected based off of last season, right? So, and based off of anything he's accomplished prior to that, and by the way, being a 5-star helps. When it comes to NFL teams, they just like it, and so I would buy on that one, Jay.
By the way, Rodolfo thinks that you're crazy. Both of us are crazy for buying that offensive statistical numbers. I don't know, Rodolfo. I tell you what. Let me just forget.
Pull up like USC or something like that, and pull up like.
No, I just want to look at last year's numbers because they weren't that far away from it in terms of the receivers.
Okay, so, that's a good one.
Like we know Xavier didn't break 1,000, and Xavier, look, maybe we gave Xavier 1,000-yard benefit of the doubt last year, and it didn't come close to happening. So last year, Worthy had 760, but we're expecting that to go up.
You're grading on a curve.
Whittington had 652 yards receiving on 50 catches. Jatavion I was off by 3 yards. He had 613 yards.
Okay.
And then the next closest receiver, I'm eliminating Bijan and Keelan Robinson from the conversation. Casey Kane caught 8 passes for 201 yards.
Well, I mean, you would think that these guys would be an upgrade over Casey Kane. No disrespect to Casey.
It's A.D. Mitchell, right? That's who we're really – although Jonte Cook – you know what? Now that I look at it, Jonte Cook is eating into somebody's yards.
Yeah.
I don't know who. I don't know who has a few hundred yards less than I think they will. But for me, Jonte Cook is going to be better than Casey Kane was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to catch 20 passes, 400-ish yards, and that's going to eat into some – maybe collectively it eats into everybody but Xavier. And if that's the case, maybe getting to an 800-yard receiver becomes difficult.
Well, don't forget, what I had in the war room about that receiver who is now balling out, and he might throw a monkey wrench into everything.
Isaiah
Nayer. He might throw a monkey wrench into all that's happening if he comes back and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a baller as well. That room's gonna be sick.
Hey, I like this one. This one feels like an easy one.
We'll see.
Buy or sell, 3 receivers will have more than 100 yards in a game.
Oh, in one game?
No.
No.
Over the course of the season, 3 different receivers will have 100 yards or more in a game.
Oh, yeah, that's easy. It would have been more difficult if he said like a 4.5 or so. Would you take the over or the under on that one?
Well, if 3 is the number, over 3, that means it has to be 4.
Yeah, so I'm putting at 4.5. What if 4.5? You take the over or the under?
I'll take the under. I think Worthy's obviously going to have that kind of a game.
Okay. Mitchell will. Yes.
I think Cook will. How about that for a bold prediction?
That's a good bold prediction.
I don't know about Jatavion or Jordan. Those guys live in that 60 or 70 range.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Jatavion had arguably the best tight end season in the history of the program last year. It was either that or David Thomas in the national championship year. But here are his yards per game. 85, 4, 5, 40, 78, 71, 37, 76, 54, 61, 1, 65, 36. So he wasn't really knocking on 100 a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at Jordan never broke 100 either. He went 26, 64, 56, 53, 58, 97, 27, 23, 22, 78, 56, 48, 44. So I'll take the under. If you set it at 4.5. If you set it at 3, I think they'll get there.
All right. So let me ask you this. While you don't ever wish it, right, on someone, but at some point, receivers get banged up, right? They've got it, thumb gets jammed, whatever the case may be. A guy has to miss a game, hammy, whatever the case may be. So do you ever account for, all right, I also know someone's going to get banged up and one person's going to have, an opportunity?
That's fair. I'm open to it. I'm taking the under.
Yeah, no,
here's an interesting, real quick though. Cotton says Quinn would have to throw for 3,700 yards for that to happen. Yeah, that's welcome to 2023 expectations.
Yeah,
where they're going to have Quinn throw the ball a lot. Let's be honest. The numbers I'm looking at, that includes the bowl game. If Quinn plays every game and they play 13, 14 games, 3,700 yards actually, I think, gets beaten pretty easily because he's going to sling it a lot this year.
Yeah. Well, one of the stats that I've used, Catch, and I think when we have the conversation about like Quinn, right, and then people will put him in the Heisman conversation, right? So, and I think I didn't have this conversation with you. I think I had it with Jason in one of the other previous shows, right? Michael Penix Jr. Catch finished with 4,641 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, right? Caleb Williams finished with 4,537 yards last year, catch, 42 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Like Drake May was at 42, or I think it's 43-21 for 38 and 7. So that's the conversation. Like that's the air that we start talking about Quinn and what you hope for him and expect. Like that's what the other guys who are like in the Heisman conversation are doing. And that's where you would kind of hope and you need to project that Quinn would be somewhere in that.
Oh, you know what? This wasn't asked in a buy or sell question. But it's kind of an interesting one. You ready for this one?
All right.
Rodolfo says, if I'm Quinn, I'm not playing no bowl unless it's the college football playoff. So my question is, buy or sell, Quinn Ewers plays in a bowl game if it's not the CFP?
I'm going to buy that he plays in it just to get more tape and more film.
We saw your face, though.
But I had to think about it for a second because I'm the ultimate, and you and I do consistent. When you remember when some of these guys started skipping bowl games at Texas and people were giving them a whole lot of crap, and we were like, man, bump that bowl game. You do not need some damn Alamo Bowl. Like, I don't give a damn about all that. I remember, I think Maalik was ended up injured, but I think like Deshaun Elliott, Connor Williams, like there was a bunch of guys that decided like they were going to skip, like they just weren't going to play. And I'm all about that life. So in my thing is, in theory, I would say no, but I think he would do it just for the film and get some more extra film going. And so because of that, I think I'm buying. What
if it's the Alamo Bowl?
Well, I would text him and tell him not to play. No, Quinn, I got your back, buddy. I got your back on these airways.
There'd be a lot of negativity going into that game. At that point, anybody who can get out might want to get out if it's Alamo Bowl again.
He has like a Longhorn tattoo. Like I think he's got to play.
I mean, Roshan sat out last year. Nobody. And Roshan is basically viewed as the all-time team guy.
But Quinn is like one of the all-time like Texas guys, right? And that so that would be like telling people, Longhorn fans, that like Santa Claus ain't real, right? That's like Quinn has always been like he grew up as a Longhorn. He came back to the Longhorns. He's got like just to say no, like that would just kill for a lot of people.
Corey has a buy or sell. This one's a tough one. Buy or sell, someone on the defense has 9+ sacks.
Boy, we're gonna get Barry mad if we don't.
I'll do it for you. I'm gonna sell until I see it.
Yeah. I can't talk myself into that. I can't talk 9+ sacks. While I would love for it to happen, I'm with you. I've got to be able to see that happen first. That's a lot of benefit of the doubt.
That puts Barron in Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year discussion if he can get to that level. Seriously, this will be a year in the conference where I think a guy that gets a double-digit sacks is in that conversation. Partly because I think Jalen Ford had a crazy good year a season ago. He could still be outstanding and not quite have the interception number, not quite have the turnovers forced number that he did a year ago. So just so you know, I'm selling, but it's not crazy to think that it's what's crazy, Anwar, is there's only one guy that we think of that has that kind of upside.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not a hard sell for me. It's just a sell, at this point, because I want to see it. But I'm not saying it's impossible. Now, if you said do I think, there'll be anybody else on the team with 5 sacks?
That's what I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
If I set it at 5.5, a second guy, not Barron. We're putting Barron. I've got Barron over 8.
Yeah.
If we put it at a second, buy or sell, a second guy gets more than 5.5 sacks this year.
So
that ain't good.
So, because if I got to do seeing is believing with Barron, well, I sure as hell have to do seeing is believing with everybody else. No disrespect.
That is fair.
With Ethan Burke or anything like that. But I'd have to sell on that one.
There's a part of me that wants to put Ethan Burke like at 6, but you're right. If we're not giving Barron 8, 9 on the benefit of the doubt scale, we can't turn around and give some dude that's not as good as him more benefit of the doubt. So yeah, I'm with you.
Can I ask you, by the way, Catch, are we off seasoning at this moment? And this is what I mean, right? This week, Texas was a unanimous number 1 as far as in the preseason Big 12 poll. We're talking about nearly 4,000 yards for Quinn Ewers, 10 sacks, that for maybe, Barron Sewell, Big 12 championship here, Xavier Worthy at maybe 14 or 1,500 yards. Are we in that moment? Are we really off seasoning at this moment, Catch? Or are we being real?
No, because I have them at 9 wins still. And I know that's going to drive people crazy.
Well, that's its own video.
But I still am at 9-3 for Texas. I have 9-3 and in the Big 12 championship game. But I'm not off seasoning because at the end of the day, if I'd even budged off of that once, I'd be like, yep, we've officially hit the Kool-Aid stage to such a degree that, but no, I'm still at 9-3, but I'm at 9-3 with Xavier Worthy having a great season, Quinn Ewers playing better. And I think we're being realistic about the defensive guys. I don't know. And ultimately I think we sold on that buy or sell offensive number with all of the numbers spread out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm expecting Quinn to have a really good season.
Yeah.
I think Barron Sorrell is going to have a really good season. 9+ sacks would be great. So, I think one of the things the questions that have been asked today are actually really good because they've just been on the teetering stage either way, where they really have made us think about it quite a bit.
Yeah. They're very good, but 9-3, by the way, Catch. I don't know if anyone would be happy with that. If they get to the Big 12 championship game, potentially, but they got to win at that point, Catch.
And they could. I'm not discounting that. I'm 9-3 in the championship game, and that championship game's a coin flip. Because that's the way that the Big 12 championship game is played like a coin flip a lot lately.
Yeah.
Last year included, where a team that went to the national championship game got outplayed and beaten in the Big 12 championship game.
I mean, that's fair. But boy, that's I think people will accept the Bama loss because it's Bama. I think the other two ones, the one in the conference you can accept. The second one, that would be some frustration, within that.
Yeah, but 7-2 would represent really big improvement for this team.
I know. I don't think anyone's looking for good. I don't think anyone's looking for measured improvement going into this season becomes the challenge.
I don't care what anybody says. The last time we saw this team play, they were beaten emphatically by Washington. That's not my opinion. That's what happened. And that game was a little over 6 months ago. So until I see it with my eyes, the new and improved Texas team that can avoid hiccups and be a plus team on the road consistently, I feel like I'm holding the flag of realism. It's not fun. It's not fun to hold the 9-3 flag and be like, and to say it in a way where you're trying to convince people it's actually improvement, because nobody wants to hear that. But this was just an okay team last year, right? I mean, they lost emphatically in the bowl game. They were upset on the road against Texas Tech. They couldn't score any points against TCU. Like, I still need this team to prove that week in and week out they will play up and not down to its competition.
Wow.
But I think they're going to be better. Like, it's not me being negative. It's me being actually optimistic with my foot only slightly on the gas.
Fair. That's fair enough. I know we'll do a preseason, obviously, prediction show at some point, and we'll start talking about our records. So I have questions, but I'll save it when we get to that point. Because you're right.
Can I go to a buy or sell question from Blake? Because I feel like we're getting ready to wrap up.
Okay.
Buy or sell. This will be a hard one for you to answer because there was no reason for you to watch a 9-3 football team in 2007.
Correct.
2023 Texas beats 2007 Texas in a game. I think the answer is buy. However, at the end of 2007, Texas figured out what to do with Jamal Charles. And he started looking like a future borderline Hall of Fame NFL running back that was like 300 a game, it seemed like, on the regular. But yeah, I think 2023 Texas beats 2007 Texas. My issue is I don't think they're beating Alabama at night. I know I don't need anybody to explain to me the Alabama quarterback situation or any. That's a game that Steve Sarkisian has never won in his life. And this Texas football program hasn't won a game like that in 20 years. I guess 2005. And then I just think they stubbed their toe on the road a couple of times. And that's not like some crazy opinion. That is a realistic view of until this team is actually playing, shows us that they can play at a level that's really high enough to avoid stubbing your toes on the road. And then there's the OU game, Anwar, which I think Texas wins that game. But if you were to 60-40 it, 70-30 it, 80-20 it, how do you handicap that game after what happened a year ago?
It's always a coin flip to me, Catch. I mean, I don't care what it is. I saw a Charlie Strong go ahead and beat OU when they actually had, I think, Baker Mayfield, that year, right? So you just never know. I that's one of those. I know it's super cliche. About it. I mean, I never expected 49-0, and I don't expect anything close to that this upcoming season. That's the game that I go into, that neutral field, that neutral site, freaky things, weird things happen. You just never know. I mean, you had a Texas team that was, had a huge lead against OU. You blink and Kyler Murray's got this damn thing, right back where they needed to be. I'm like, Kat, I think I told you this story, right? I think I told you this story that it was in the fourth quarter, and it takes a while to get up from the Cotton Bowl down to where the interview area is. So it takes about fourth quarter, you got to start walking. And I got to walk all throughout the state. And I keep hearing things happening, and I hear OU celebrating. I'm like, by the time I actually came out in the end zone, I couldn't believe the score. I couldn't believe that just happened that quickly. It's a coin flip for me. What about you?
I think I'm at 60-40 Texas, but 60-40's an eyelash away from 50-50.
Yeah.
And so I don't include an Oklahoma loss in my 9-3, but if I told you they lose a close game to Bama, they lose a coin flip game to Oklahoma, and they stub their toe once on the road, then you're 9. That's 9-3.
Yeah.
And so what it really comes down to is, for me, I tend to think they stubbed their toe twice on the road and beat Oklahoma. But you could just as easily flip-flop those two. It's hard for me to think that Texas runs the table on the road other than Alabama. Just, I have not yet seen that from a Texas football team in a while, where you're like, oh yeah, they're on the road, no problem. Instead, more times than not, they play down to, they shouldn't have lost that game against Oklahoma State last year, but they do these types of things on the road. Anyway, one last buy or sell question, mainly because I just want it completely directed at you. Let me see if I can find it, because it was a little bit ago. Where'd it go? Come on. All right, well, I will, because I can't find it, I'll give you the question. Oh, here it is. Buy or sell, Derek Williams has a chance to crack the starting lineup.
Buy. I mean, you said chance. That's the key word. You're not asking me to predict it, but a chance, yeah, because I think Catch there. I put this thing out Twitter. We had it on our war room. That's like, and we had tons of other notes in our war room that if you've missed out on, you got to get on Orangebloods to check it out. The Derek Williams hype is kind of is real, and everyone behind the scenes seems to be really high on Derek, and this is like the second time in the last 3 weeks that I've checked in and I've asked, like, all right, so who's looking good, and Derek Williams is the first person that name is being mentioned, and so he it's one of these things. I feel like as more recruiting classes start to go down the road and starts getting guys that he's really excited about and Pete K is really excited about. Yeah, I think he's got a chance. Do I know what's going to happen in week 1? I don't know about that one. But does he have a shot based off of the excitement about him? Like, absolutely.
Has a chance is the key word. Like, yeah. I mean, a guy could get hurt and boom, there he is. I think the bigger question I have in my mind is that if there are no injuries, like, we think Jaron Thompson and Catalan are probably the two starting safeties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who of those guys is he bumping? I have a hard time. That would be, boy, would he have to be special, I think, for Sarkisian to remove a senior productive player who has NFL dreams. To bench a senior would be not necessarily wrong, right? You play your best players. But whew.
Yeah.
That's tough. Without an injury, you're telling a senior you're not better than a freshman, and you're telling that senior, like, you probably shouldn't have come back. You should have transferred at that point.
I mean, yeah, but I'm gonna say this, and I know the stat that I'm going to say isn't everything, Catch, but it's the thing you should hang your hat on, right? Jalen Ford led this team in interceptions last season, and that was at 4. The second guy was Jahdae Barron. He was at 2. Deshaun Jameson had 2 as well. Jaron Thompson had 1. Ryan Watts had 1. And again, and then that's about it. I get it, right? I get it. It's not the only stat, but we don't. There's not a shutdown guy on this team when it's someone saying we don't throw to that side of the field. So that doesn't exist at this moment. So I don't know if there's that huge degree of separation where you say to yourself, like, how do you catch up to that? where your linebacker led the team in INTs last season, and we know this team wants to generate more turnovers.
Look, if you're putting him in situationally,
yeah,
and he goes Deshaun Elliott ham on the field, and suddenly it's just like that guy can't stop intercepting passes. Well, then it organically takes care of itself. I'm curious to see how quickly, not how soon he starts, how soon is he taking reps away from ones where, and there are times where we've seen them rotate on defense and it's like, what the are they doing? Like, I know you got to keep guys healthy for the fourth, fresh for the fourth quarter, but those guys suck. And then a lot of times you'll see like the ball go right down the field, right? It's like, hey, the backups are in on defense and they've gone 60 yards in 4 plays, and now all of the starters are running back onto the field. How quickly does Derek Williams start taking reps away from the ones? And that's not happening, right? So Williams comes on the field and the defense doesn't suffer a drop-off in his spot. And then if the playmaking comes, I mean, no offense to those seniors, but Derek Williams is the future. Might also depend on, is a championship on the line? You're less likely to probably pull a senior if you're 7-0, right? I mean, you're not rocking the boat. It's like, well, you're not a starter, but you're playing like a starter. There's a lot of ways for them to massage that. They're 8-4. There might be 8 freshmen starting by the end of the year. Like, if the season went that way, I think Sarkisian is like, John Tate Cook, get on the field. Derek Williams, get on the field. I think they're all on the field at that point.
When Charlie decided he was just going to play nothing but freshmen, and he was like, screw it. I don't care what happens. We'll just ride or die with these guys. The thing is, though, Catch, I want to say this, though. If you are Sarkisian and you do feel like you got a better chance, I mean, hey, you are in year 3, and people want results. And so, you maybe in year 2, you can justify that, but like year 3, if you feel like you got an advantage, you might want to go ahead and put that guy in.
It's interesting. Who, real quick, because I know we got to wrap up the show. Who are the freshmen that could potentially put Sark into a position where he has to make a hard decision? CJ Baxter?
CJ Baxter for sure.
John Tate Cook?
Yes.
Anthony Hill? Yeah, although I think they'd just get him on the field as soon as they could. Maalik Muhammad? Derek Williams?
Those are the ones that I was writing them down. I was trying to think if there's anybody else, because even like Ryan Niblett's doing good, but I don't think he's going to force something right as of right now.
Vasic's not ready for that yet.
No, Arch isn't ready. So yeah, those are the guys. I would say those are the guys. I think the guy out of all of them that pushes it hardest soonest will be Anthony Hill.
Who's second?
I think Baxter. It's either Baxter or Williams for me. I think Baxter only because there's not a lot of skins on the wall in that running back room where you would say to yourself, like, that guy's untouchable, or to your point, like the hard conversations that need to be had. I think, you can just justify that in the running back room.
They go all chips in on Jonathan Brooks at that Alabama game, and he can't get anything going. Yeah. I think week 3, it's platoon. And it's let's see what we've got with some of these. Let's see what we've got with. I don't know that by the time we get to Alabama, Sark is thinking, let's see what we've got in CJ Baxter in week 2 to the tune of like 15 touches. Boy, if the running game's sluggish to get started out the gate, Yeah, I might put C.J. Baxter 1, actually, as much as I think Anthony Hill is needed. You know, the running game's unproven, so we'll see. All right, you got anything else?
No, I got a part in shop, but I'm gonna save it for next week. So we're good.
All right, guys, we'll remind you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If we said anything at all today that was remotely informative, like button. Get notifications, do all those things, and by all means, contact Andy over at myperfectfranchise.net if you're thinking about starting a new life, if you're thinking about living the dream and being the man and finding freedom in your business ventures. Let Andy take care of that for you. But for myself, for Anwar, who's got it, I love that MTV t-shirt. I want it. For Blake, for all of you, thanks for contributing today in our chat sessions to give us the questions. Really good job today, guys. I thought the questions were on point. We will see you on Monday for the Monday Overreaction Show. However, if Aaron Hampton commits to Texas tonight, I think at 7:30 is the new time. Should that happen, I'll probably fly solo. Blake's telling me 7:45. It keeps getting later and later. So what does he think this is? Like a Texas game going to midnight? Like, what are we doing here? Until later on tonight, probably. You guys have a good rest of your Friday. Go do a happy hour tonight if you get a chance. Be safe. Be considerate. Make sure you've got another driver. But, go tear it up a little bit. We give you permission until our next